Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me like this. Can you just put a little yes in the chat? Then I know you can all hear me. Okay, perfect. Okay, then we can start with our webinar of tonight. I know that it's very warm and that a lot of you also like to be on the terrace or on the beach. But still, I believe we have some important and interesting comment for you to show and to discuss tonight as well. So I try to focus on what is most important, and I believe that it will be interesting enough just to stay. We try to do it in 1 hour, something like that. And then afterwards you can discuss with your friend, family, or other people on a terrace or at the beach with a nice beer, cold wine, or something similar. So purchase a house in Amsterdam. That's what the webinar is about tonight. But I first like to start a little bit with who we are and what we do. So myself, I'm Philip Albrecht from VK Makelaars en Taxateurs. We are a VBO member, we are a realtor, and we are an appraiser. Since 2019, we all work longer in the real estate business, but since 2019, we started VK Makelaars. We have, in the meantime, 2 offices, one in Haarlem, one in Amsterdam, but you will see as well that we work also in the rest of the Randstad, in cities like Utrecht, Rotterdam, The Hague, and we can also support you in the rest of the Netherlands. Of course, it depends a little bit on the services that you ask from our side. We have 8 colleagues at your service. That means that we have more colleagues, but we have 8 colleagues that are a realtor or appraiser. And of course, they can help you every time that you need us. What makes us special is to say that we follow the principle of the 4 Ps. That means we try to make it personal. We make it personal as well in the sense that we all do our files from A to Z. It means you will not have like the intake with myself and then have the file afterwards treated by one of the assistants. No, it will be full time that I'm at your disposal. We try and we are proactive, be punctual as well in our work, and be precise in everything that we do. So the 4 Ps, very important. We try to prove that every day, and it also shows in the ratings that we get. We have a client rating of 4.9 out of 5, so that's quite good, I have to say. If you look at our services in the regions, I said before, we have 2 offices in Amsterdam and Haarlem. Of course, it's most easy from us to work from that area or in that area. Amsterdam, Haarlem, everything around and in between. But we also work in the Randstad, as I said. If you are looking for something in Rotterdam or The Hague, a lot of experts are looking over there as well. So that's something where we can help you with as well. And we have the knowledge and the experience to help you over there. If you want us to help you in the rest of the Netherlands, that's also an option. But there, the services that we offer are limited in the sense that, we cannot come to like a viewing every day if we need to go to Eindhoven, for example, but we can support you with our basic package, and we can do that later in our presentation. Then you will see what is really included in there, and for some people that is more than enough. Feel free to stay until the end, then I explain a little bit more. Of course, we are a realtor. That means we can help with a purchase. We can help also with selling your property. Maybe at a certain moment you want to go abroad and sell your place, or just move to another place. We can do that as well. Help with rent assistance, letting your property if you are a private investor. And we can also do valuation and property management. For valuation, you see limited range. That is because it's the standard in the profession of valuation that exists, that you can only do valuations within a 10-kilometer range from your head office that is located in Amsterdam for us. So that's always a rule that applies. We need to follow that rule, of course. And then myself, I said before, my name is Philip Albrecht. I followed a master in law. I did a master in real estate. I'm a RICS member. I'm also having a confirmation of being a broker and property manager. Yeah, a lot of experience, but yeah, the most experience, of course, you have it when you handle the files every day. And in that sense, I offer already 15 years of real estate experience in an international setting, to say, not only in the Netherlands before, but also in the Netherlands. I worked a little bit across Europe. I was born in Belgium, in the meantime married and a father of a beautiful daughter. And what is the most important, you can call me at any time. If you go to look at our website, I will tell you that real estate is my hobby. I do it for fun, and that's also how it feels. So even if you call me at 10 a.m. in the evening, that's no problem. If you call me at 3 at night, then it's possible maybe that I will only reply in the morning. Yeah. As I said, I'm not alone. We are together with a team. So that's the team you can see over here. And this is how we try to come to you. We use scooter, we use the bike as much as possible, as we do in the Netherlands. If it is possible to use a bike, then we will do that. And you will see there on the bike as well that we say we have no nonsense attitude. That means we try to be as correct and direct as possible. Of course, we take time for you, that is no problem, but we will not tell more than is necessary, in the sense we will try to guide you to the important information that you need the fastest possible. And that's why we will start as well with some content. The first thing maybe that a lot of people ask us is, yeah, do I need to buy, or is it better to rent in today's market? I will give you some general guidelines. If you decide to buy or to rent, and you still need to make a decision in that, there are always pros and cons. If you see with rent, it's flexible, of course. You have shorter term contracts a lot of times, so it makes it flexible for the landlord, but also for yourself to change and to find another property. Yeah, you have low or no maintenance costs, and the management is also for the landlord. That's different, of course, when you own a house, and the property is insured by the landlord. So that's also all positive. When you rent, there are some positive aspects to that as well. Of course, you're not guaranteed to stay forever. It can be that after a certain period, the landlord says, okay, now I choose another tenant. Your contract stopped, the fixed period is over, and I choose somebody else, so you need to leave the building. It happens more than once. So that's, of course, a big negative point. The rent will be adapted as well. In that sense, for your budget or your forecasting of your cash flows, you don't always know exactly what will be the cost of housing going forward. So that's important to know. And you don't build up equity. That's very important, I believe. You don't build up any equity. It's more like renting is a cost. So it is deducted from all your income that you have, and you don't get a lot in return, except for the use of the property for a certain period, of course. When you buy, you can build up equity. I start with that as the first point, because I think it's very important. You can, of course, adapt everything more to your own needs. It is your property, so you can decide what you do with the property. And it is possible to adapt everything to your own wishes and desires. Of course, you also have interest rate, but the positive thing still on today is that the tax is deductible from your salary before it gets taxed. And that's special in the Netherlands. And of course, it's a big benefit for people that buy a place, that you have that tax deduction. You have fixed monthly installments. That is a possibility if you choose, of course, for a mortgage where you have that fixed monthly installments guaranteed. Of course, you also have some negative points. You will need to do the maintenance of the building. That is clear. And so that is for your account. And you also need to pay some owner taxes on the property. So that's something you need to deduct as well from the benefit that you have. Now, if you look at this, you will have positive points, you will have negative points. Yeah, of course, the last thing I didn't mention, but you have the risk of the value of the property as well. And we all believe that the market is always going up. Of course, we all know that there are always ups and downs in every market and in every investment. So also for that, if you need to sell at the wrong moment, then of course you have the risk of the value as an owner. What I always say, if you look at it at the longer perspective, if you don't need to sell a property when the market is bad and you can just keep it, pay the mortgage, and you keep it until the moment that the market is going up again, then there is not really a risk. But of course, if in your specific situation, it can be that at a certain moment you're forced to sell and you cannot wait any longer, then you will have the risk of negative value on the property, of course. Yes. If we see that this example, because I like to put it a little bit in an example as well, you have the purchase price of this property. It's one of the apartments on the first floor, let's say, and the rent is 1,900 euros per month. You don't find a lot of those properties on today in the market, or a lot of people are willing to pay that for a nice property. If we then compare over here, then we see we have the rent 1,900 euros that we need to pay every month. If we buy the property, then we buy it at 600,000 euros, where we have a gross monthly installment of 2,611. As I said, you have some deductions on that in your tax returns. So net monthly payments are 2,031 euros. This means in this example, you have a difference of 131 euros that you will pay more, a difference between 2,031 and 1,900 if you buy a property. So 130 euros you need to pay more. Of course, what I said before is we build up some equity with the mortgage. Over here it's 1,670 euros, but at the other hand, we also have maintenance costs. Here we somewhere put that at 500 euros every month. That's all maintenance costs in total included, but then we calculate it per month. That means that still, if we make the total calculation, that in the end we will have a benefit of 1,000 euros, a little bit more even when we buy a property. Yeah. So this is also taking into account that at that moment we are not counting for the overvalue maybe that we can have the moment that we sell the property again. So yeah, if you ask me, if it is able to buy a property, it is always a good thing to do. If you have a certain case yourself and you say, yeah, I don't know how to calculate exactly, can you have a look for me on that specific case, then yeah, please stay contact and we will help you with that for free, of course. That is no problem at all. Yeah. So buying or renting, it is clear, if we buy, we build up equity. If we rent, it's more looked at a cost, but depending on your situation, you have some pluses and some minus. Market information then. If we decide to buy, we need to know the market. That is clear. Then I come to what I said before. We have here an overview of the Dutch real estate market and the housing pricing index, and that is based on the CBS. The CBS is like the central organization administration that gathers all the numbers in the Netherlands and then put them in graphs, but also shares it with other parties in the market. What is very important over here is that you see that what I said before, in 2008, we had a little bit of a problem with banks. In 2010, that resulted in the Netherlands in a real shift in prices. You see, between 2010, 2015, prices went down. What was the reason at that moment was the fact that in the Netherlands, you could have a mortgage up to 130% of the value of the house. And today it's only 100%. So that's a big difference. And there were still some other rules that applied, which had as a result, at that moment in time, there was a lot of offer on the market. The demand went totally down and people were not able to pay anymore. So you had a decrease of the prices. But from that moment on, the market, of course, got balanced again, or yeah, at a certain moment, it was in disbalance again. Since 2020, you can see that the prices went up very fast. Yeah, I come to that in a moment, the reason why we see that shift in prices going up that fast. But important for you to see that is that in the long run, if you see the index from 1995 until 2025, you see that, or 2022, of course, but you see that the prices are going up. And even if you take into account inflation, then real estate prices are keeping the same pace or doing even a little bit better. Yeah. So again, if you don't need to sell, then investing in a house is a good decision. What I did as well is to offer you the housing price index of 2022. Because of course you read a lot as well in the newspapers, and sometimes the newspapers, they like to put everything in one phrase, like in the header of the article, and they say, yeah, house prices are going down, or there are no viewers, or people don't overbid anymore, and blah blah blah. I will come to that overbidding as well in a moment, because it's a little bit more complicated than just to explain it in one sentence. What we see in the end is that the housing price index in 2022 is still going up at the moment. Yeah, of course, you need to read the graph as it is. We went from 181 something towards 188, maybe a little bit higher, but it means as well that it's not going as crazy as anymore as it did before. That is clear. In 2020, 2021, even beginning 2022, prices went up faster than ever before. Now we see that we come somewhere to a plain level field, or how do you say that exactly in English, where we see that we are stabilizing with prices, and we come maybe to a normal level where we say the balance between housing prices and the financing, of course, is now balanced, and we stay on the same level for the couple of months to come, and maybe the next couple of years to come. Yeah, so that is clear. At the moment, we don't see a decrease. We don't see that in the numbers for sure. So that's something I wanted to explain with this graph. And then if we look a little bit more in detail in the numbers of the real estate markets in general, what do we see? And I put here Q1, but it needs to be Q2. I mentioned correct over here. Then we see that there are a lot of houses that are sold, 35,000. It's minus 1% compared on a year-to-year basis, but still the numbers are going up if you compare that to the last couple of months. Houses for sale on the market, you see as well 40% more if you compare that on a year-to-year basis. So that's something important that we see. There is more offer coming to the market. One of the main reasons for that is that some people that like to sell their house and were waiting for a moment because they bought a new build and it's still under construction, they believe now that maybe indeed because the market is stabilizing and they fear that maybe a mortgage interest rates would go up again. They try to sell the house already for now, maybe rent something in the meantime, but that they are sure that they have the amount they calculated to be able also to finance their new build. So that's why we see that there are more houses coming to the market. So as a buyer, that can be interesting. What we see is that the average purchase price is on 448,000 at the moment in the Netherlands. It's an increase with 10% if you compare 1 year ago. Of course, that's an average in the Netherlands. We come to some figures about Amsterdam as well in a moment, and they are a little bit higher. And then we see as well, we have the new builds over here, because if I don't say anything in specific, I'm always talking about existing houses. Of course, you have the new builds as well, but that process of buying is a little bit different, and that market is a separate market as well. What we see over there is that there are a lot less houses that were sold. I come to that in a moment with the reason why, because it has to do with material costs and all those kind of things. There are also a little bit less houses for sale. Also has to do with the developers that holding some some projects back out of the market at the moment. And there you see that we have also a price on average of 483,000. If you compare that with existing houses, it's maybe around 10%, something like that. What is important, if you go for a new build, take into account that the price is not calculated exactly in the same way. You will have different costs that apply. You will also have different things that are included or excluded. For example, with a lot of new builds, you still need to pay for your floor, the finishing of your walls, and you also need to pay for the kitchen that needs to go in there. So if you have this average price, then still you need to put that cost on top of it. If I speak with mortgage advisors, then they tell me, that extra cost for finishing of a new build can go from 5 to 10%. So important to know, you cannot compare the numbers one-to-one, because that would give a wrong result in the end. I had some green elements to point it out, but I said already. But we still see that sales period is short, 24 days for new builds. There is no info that is there in the market at the moment, but we still see that 24 days is not a long period, so sales still go quite fast. And then I told you that we come back as well to the numbers in specific of the Amsterdam market. What we see over here is that, of course, the number of houses that were sold went up in this quarter with 30% compared to the last quarter, minus 7% year-to-year base, we need to say, but compared to last quarter, they went up. You see that the number of houses sold, they are only going up 29% year-to-year basis, 71% quarter basis. Houses for sale, I'm sorry. So you see also over there, more houses coming to the market. That's what I explained already. And you see also that the average purchase price is here 574,000 in Amsterdam, compared to the average in the Netherlands. You see that it's clear that it's higher. It's almost 130,000 euros extra you need to pay, but you are in Amsterdam, of course. And what we see as well is that if we look at the price per square meters, we see as well that that price per square meter is still going up. So again, we read a lot in the newspapers about the market, but we see on the numbers until now that they are still going up. Of course, those numbers sometimes have a little bit of a delay as they are calculated on the moment of the transfer deed. And you know that happens a little bit later than when really the offer is accepted. So it can be that the next couple of months we see a little bit of a shift in those numbers, but I don't expect that it will be that much of a difference as the numbers that we see over here. Total days in Amsterdam 26, also fast, but a little bit slower than the average. And then I come maybe to a very nice and important slide. If you as a potential buyer ask me, what will the market do going forward? Then of course I don't have a glass ball. Let's be honest on that. I cannot predict what is going to happen exactly from A to Z. But I can look at the drivers of the market, and I can explain what I believe will happen, and then what will be likely that the market will do. What we see is the offer and demand over here is existing properties and new build properties in the market. As I said, two markets that are different. With the existing properties, we see that there are more houses coming to the market on today. I explained it already. People want to sell to be sure to have that income to buy something else or to finance their new build. So we see there the offer is going up. Still in total, if you look at the total market in the Netherlands, we have a housing shortage around 300,000 houses. Around 300,000 families or people are looking for a house at the moment, and they cannot find it. Even it was 1 week ago in the newspapers, it was mentioned that universities ask for expats that come to only do studies over here in the Netherlands. And if they cannot find a property to stay in the meantime, that maybe it's better for them to unsubscribe at the university and not to come at all to the Netherlands. So we see over there that the offer is still low, and that the supply is not totally following. And then we come to the new builds, of course. If you want to have more supply in the market, more offers, then of course we need to build more. What was the plan of the minister, but also of previous ministers already, was to build around 100,000 houses every year. Because in the statistics, they believe that from now until now in 10 years, there will be 1 million people more living in the Netherlands. So we need 1 million houses on top of the shortage that we have. What we see on today is that we can only build 60,000 houses, maybe 70,000 houses in the best years. And that is really a problem, because with today's market, also the fact that, and that you can see a little bit lower, material costs are going up with the war in Ukraine. Alternatives like rental market is also a problem, because there is not enough housing in the market, and there are not a lot of other housing solutions at the moment. They are still discussing about maybe can you go to live on the water, or can you live on houses that normally are only for holidays and all those kind of things. But on today there are no decisions, so no alternatives, and the new builds cannot follow. What is also important is that the developers, of course, and always need to have an agreement on their new projects. And on today, they see that the material costs sometimes are too high. So they say, if we bring it to the market for this amount, we cannot make a profit anymore. Or they also have to take into account that there are some rules that apply on today about stikstof is called in Dutch. It's all what is has to do with sustainability and those kind of things. The reason why we drive 100 on the highway. And it also makes that they cannot start with every project they like to start. So to make a long story short, there is a problem with already existing offer on the market, 300,000 houses short, and even the new builds, they cannot follow. So on the offer side, we see that the offer cannot follow the demand. The demand stays high, and the reason for that is, of course, is the fiscal benefits. The transfer tax normally is 2% if you go to live in the property. If you do it as an investment, you will need to pay 7%, and it will only go up for investors. You also need to take into account as an investor that it's not always possible to buy something and to rent it out. In some cities, you need to live in the property yourself for a number of years, 4 to 5 years yourself. But transfer tax, 2% normally, 7%, or you can even be exempted if you're below 35 and you buy under 400,000 euros. You also have a tax rebate. That's also a very beneficial fiscal benefit. And of course, when you buy something and you sell it again, then also the overvalue is 100% exempted. It means that a lot of people that bought like 10 years ago or around 2015, as you saw in the graph before, they have a lot of overvalue. If they sell that house, they can use 100% of that overvalue to buy a new house, and then on top of that take a mortgage as well. So all of that plays a big role in the prices going up. The Jubelton, it's also important. It was important in the past because people could give like 100K or a little bit more to their children, and there was no tax on that as well, but it will be totally cancelled going forward. Fiscal benefits also mean that there is offer, but there is also a big demand, and a demand where people can pay a lot because all those fiscal benefits that exist. What is then the main driver, of course, in between is the finance cost. How much can you have as a mortgage? And how does that balance out, of course, with housing prices? I come to the mortgage in specific a little bit later. What we saw, of course, this year in 2022, it's very clear that interest rates went up like crazy. If you compare beginning of the year until now, then we saw an increase that we almost never saw before. If you look at it in a real historical perspective, then still, if you have an interest rate around 3.5%, that's still a normal interest rate for a mortgage in the Netherlands, and it's not even that high. There is one professor in the Netherlands who is really focused on mortgages, housing market, and everything related. He says that the moment that, of course, interest rates go up, we will see an impact on the market. What we see as well on today, housing prices are leveling, but it doesn't have a negative impact on the prices unless we go to a mortgage interest rate that comes close to 5%. That's his prediction for now. On today, we are not that far, and we'll come to that a little bit later, but we even see that mortgage rates potentially will go down a little bit the next coming months and maybe the next coming year. Material costs I explained already, and alternatives I explained as well. So we see the drivers in the market, of course, low offer. With existing properties, it's getting a little bit higher, so it can be an interesting point to step into the market. New builds are behind. Fiscal benefits put the prices up, and also at the moment the finance cost still affordable, but a little bit less than beginning of the year. Market knowledge, new build or existing houses. These I'm going to just go through it with you very quickly. But what is important to know is that a new build and an existing house is not the same. So with a new build, you don't have transfer tax. With a new build, you will not need to hire an appraiser. The bank don't need that. They just take the purchase price as the value of the property. The energy labels are very good, of course. That's different with the houses that were built in the 30s. and that are also yeah, very common in the Netherlands. Maintenance costs are very low and you can do your own finishing, but remember what I said before, you will also need to pay a little bit for that finishing. So take that in your calculations on the budget that you need. Negative points, of course, is with a new build. It takes until 1.5 to sometimes 2.5 years to build that house. So you have double housing costs in the meantime. You need to take that into account. That's what I said over here, 1 to 2 years delivery time. Sometimes it's even a little bit longer. There is, of course, also a registration that is necessary over there. So take that into account. No viewings possible in the new builds. You will receive only the plans, and then afterwards you see how the building really is built. So also on the materials and everything, you don't have a 100% guarantee. It is described, but you still need to see how it will be finalized in the end. And the price is the price. That's what I said. You cannot negotiate on prices. I need to bring a little remark on that at the moment, as we see that with new builds. If you want to go for a new build, take into account that because of material costs going up, that some developers have the clause that when material costs go up until a certain level, at a certain moment they can extra charge you for that material cost. So that even means that the price is known at the start of your contract, but totally in the end when it's delivered, it can be that the total price is a little bit higher depending on the material costs, how they went up or down, of course, in the meantime, but most of times they will go up. Purchase process is different. Take it into account. Mortgage offer needs to be longer than 6 months. So also important to speak to your mortgage advisor about this. If you have a new build, then you need to have another offer from a bank than with existing houses. You have a purchase and a building contract. So 2 contracts, sometimes they are combined in one document, but you will have the purchase of the land and the building of the property itself. So take that into account as well. It are standard contracts, so normally they should be okay. But of course, some developers also add some clauses in there, and that's of course very important to pick them out. So if you need some assistance, better to ask for an expert to have a look together with you, because it can make a big difference. Other purchase costs, that's what I said, that apply, other payment terms that apply, and other guarantees that will apply. So if you want to have some more information, call us or follow our social media, because soon we will also have a specific webinar only about new builds in the Netherlands. And then we have the Dutch bidding systems. I'm not going to go too deep in detail as well over here, because I will show you with an example as well what happens. In the end, you have 3 types of bidding systems. You have the inschrijving, as it's called in Dutch. That's just at a certain moment that they say that is the deadline, and then everybody needs to make their offer. And then the seller can decide to sell it, of course, or even can decide not to sell it, but he can agree on the best offer, what he believes is the best offer. We have also the Amsterdam system, where it means that one person can already make a bid. Then there can still be viewings. In the meantime, the first bidder and the seller are in negotiation. Maybe they come to an agreement. If they don't come to an agreement, then the selling agent can ask as well to everybody else after the first bidder to make their last and final offer, to say. And then the first bidder still have the chance to make also a last and best offer. And then out of those offers, those last and best offers, the seller can choose the best offer for him. Of course, if the first bidder and the seller already came to an agreement, it can be that the house is sold. Yeah, that's the Amsterdam bidding system. And then you have the third one, that's online bidding. That's more like an auction system, or like the inschrijving, as I said before, registration, but then it's also online registration. The conclusion is that, there is, of course, the demand to make the process of buying a house a little bit more transparent. It is good to make it like an online system where people register. I think that's perfectly fine, and that's also a good thing to do that. The only thing is, if we have that auction, then often it's only like the price that is known from the other offers and not all the conditions. So it is difficult then also to compare all the offers on the spot when you're participating in the auction. So that's not totally 100% transparent as well, I have to say. And the other one is like an online registration. Yeah, that still at that moment, it can be that a selling agent will have access, direct access to all the registrations that are done online, and he can still leak some information to somebody, and then that person can make a better offer also online. So until now, everybody is trying to search for the best way to have like a transparent way of bidding, and also to make it as good as possible, that it's watertight, to say. But yeah, it will take some more time to find the ideal solution for that. What I have to say is that it is good that there are already steps being taken. I think it's in the benefit of everybody. Yeah, of course, let's hope that the parties that you meet in the market play the game as fair as possible. Then I come to some important lessons as well for the market, and this I call the 1, 2, 3 rule. Something to remember because it's important going forward, and also something is specific for the Dutch market, maybe copied in some other countries at the moment. The asking price of this property is 475,000 euros. That means that, okay, it's nicely priced, but what does it mean for my financing? For the financing, I always need to look at the value of the property. What we see and saw a lot before is that the asking price was and is below the value of the property. So here the value is 520,000, which is higher, of course, as the asking price. The purchase price for this property, we made a good offer, and we made an offer of 543,250,000. What do people say a lot is that, okay, I did an overbid on that property of 68,250, because there's a difference between the asking price and the purchase price. To me, that doesn't totally meet reality, as the most important, of course, is the value of the property. Yeah, and for this property, from the start, the value was already 520,000. So if we make an offer of 543,250, it means that in the end we only overbid it with 23,250. Yeah, this means that if we look at the overbidding like that, we looked at the asking price, people will say, oh, I needed to overbid with 14%. But if you look in reality, that is not totally correct, because the value was higher, 520,000, and that means we only overbid with 4.5%. Yeah. Even in today's market, overbidding will happen for sure for the total good properties at a good location and totally finished. If we see properties at a location maybe that is not the best, or where we have a lot of work and those kind of things, then we even see that overbidding is not always necessary. Yeah. What also happens on today, and that's important to know, is that on today, because the brokers know that the overbidding is lower, that they will shift the asking price closer to the value again. Yeah. So going forward, it can be that you don't even need to overbid, because when you pay the asking price, you already pay the value of the property. But that's something, of course, if you need to know that, that's something where we can help you. We will look in databases and make a reference to houses that were sold lately. And there we can see exactly what were the prices and what is the value of that property. Yeah, so that's a good thing to remember. If you talk about overbidding or making an offer, look at the value of the property. That's the amount you can finance. And look at that value before you make the offer, rather than only to look at the asking price. Okay, now we know all those informations, then you will say, yeah, I'm ready to start the purchase process. I like to buy a property now, but yeah, how long will that take, and what steps do I need to take to go from A to Z? I will do that together with you. The most important thing is on today, take financial advice. Yeah. We can help you a little bit with that, but we are a realtor, we are a broker, we are not a mortgage advisor. Of course, we have a lot of partners where, if you like, I can share the information with you and they will help you. Yeah, they will be very happy to do that. But important, look at your financing. What is your budget? What do you have in savings? What is then the purchase that you like to do? What are the extra costs? And what can you have extra as a mortgage? If you're ready with that, then you can start the search. We can help you with that. You can also do that using the most important websites in the country like funda.nl, but also some other that are available for that. Of course, when you are able to book a viewing, or we can help you to do that as well, then you go on the spot to the property. The good thing is, of course, if you didn't buy a property in the Netherlands before, we can help you and a little bit benchmark every property with what is normal, yes or no, and give some comments on that. Of course, if you say, I can do that myself, I did it before, that's an option as well. Of course, it's to you to decide how you want to organize that. What is important after the viewing is, you say, I really like this property, then you need to do a due diligence on the documents. That's something I go a little bit slower over here, because I think it's very important. A lot of those documents are in Dutch. Some people don't even look at them and just make an offer without looking at any detail, any specific document. I can tell you, I had more than one file where I looked into the documents, and for example, the permit was not totally okay for the total of the building, or they were going to buy in co-ownership, and it seems there were financial problems. Or you looked at all the documents and you saw that there was a technical issue, maybe in Amsterdam also with the foundations of the building, which can have a big cost to renovate. So all of those elements we can find in those documents for you. So if you really like a property, then just ask us to have a look at it. We do that on the spot, so it doesn't take longer than 1 hour or something like that. And so you will not lose time longer than that to make an offer, but then at least you know what you're buying. As I said before, also the value is very important, because that's the amount you will be able to finance. And of course, you want also to buy something close to the value of that property at that moment in time. So we will estimate the value for you, because of course, afterwards also an appraiser will do that. But the appraiser charges around 750 to 900 euros, depending a little bit which city and which neighborhood you're looking at. And of course, if you then don't win the bid, then it's very expensive for you. Yeah. So we will make an estimation on that value, and we do it in the same way as an appraiser does. So we will come quite close to that value. We have all information about the property. We know the value. Then it's time to make an offer, of course. We do that also together with you, and we will send in your name the offer to the selling agent. Why do we do that? Because it gives a little bit of comfort to the selling agents. They know that, of course, we know the difficulties to look at when we look at a property, and they know as well that if we make an offer, that it is like a 99.9% sure that the offer will result in a purchase contract. If you don't have a buying agent, a lot of times you will be ranked second or even third, even when you make a higher offer, because the selling agent will also calculate a little bit of risk in your offer. Yeah, we will do that together with you. The price is important, but also, of course, a financial clause is very important. If there, do you want to put it conditional to receiving a mortgage? Yes or no? A technical clause. Do you want to have a technical inspection? Do you want to take over some movables? Yeah, some other things that are important for you, like maybe the transfer date and all those kind of things. We make a total offer, of course, that is clear for the selling agent what to expect. And then we hope, of course, that your offer gets selected as the winning offer. Then it's time for the experts to come in before you sign the purchase contract. The experts, as I said, is the appraiser, and it's also the technical inspector. Yeah. They are separate experts. You can always decide your own to take one of the partners that we have, or choose your own. That's all of what you like to do. You can also decide not to do a technical inspection. Depends a little bit on the property as well, of course, and yeah, your knowledge about real estate. But yeah, often it is advised to do that. And for sure, when you have a mortgage, then an appraiser is always needed, because you need an official report for an expert from the NWWI to show that to get your mortgage approved. Yeah. After signing of the purchase contract, of the experts come in, we sign the purchase contract, of course, and then we hope that everything is okay in there. You still have a cooling off period of 3 days where you can decide, yeah, I did maybe a mistake and I still want to cancel the contract. That is possible without paying any fine within a period of 3 days. After that, it's not possible anymore, and you will need to pay a fine unless you have that financial exception, of course. And then you apply for the mortgage with the signed purchase contract and the appraisal report. You can go forward to apply for the mortgage. If it's approved, you will need to pay 1 week later the deposit to the notary with the bank guarantee or just with a deposit from your own savings. And then you will receive also the final settlement, which is like the total amount you will need to pay for the purchase of the house, being the purchase price, all costs deducted. Also, of course, the costs of all experts that came into the process. And then, of course, maybe a part that you will need to pay with your own savings. And then we go to the notary to sign the transfer deed. But just before we do that, we have the final inspection of the house. That's not the same as a technical inspection. It's just a final inspection of the house, but just to see that everything is still okay. If not, we can also discuss with the notary to do something about the amount that they need to transfer to the seller. Maybe they need to hold something frozen in the account of the notary until everything is fixed. Yeah. Final inspection just before signing of the transfer deed. And then of the moment that you sign the transfer deed, of course, you get the keys. You can use the property. And very important to mention as well, if you believe that there is really a hidden defect in the house, then you can still put the seller liable for that, but then you need to do that the shortest periods possible. And it means within 2 months, something like that. There are some examples about fungus or something in the basement of a house. If you wait too long, then often the judge will say, I cannot know anymore if it was there already before, yes or no, and if the seller knew. So you needed to come faster with that information, because now I cannot decide it's the liability of the seller anymore. Yeah, let's hope it will not happen, and you don't need to do that, but important to take it into account. And then a little bit about the timing you need to take into account. Of course, the search and the viewings. It depends a little bit how fast you are in that yourself, of course, and how fast you find something. Then we have 1 to 3 days, as I said, between the viewings and the moment you need to make an offer. That's not too long normally, although I have to say that in today's market it's changing a little bit and you have a little bit more time sometimes. Then we have the experts come in place and signing of the purchase contract. That's with a maximum of 2 weeks. Then you have, after the signing of the purchase contract, the mortgage approval. That will take around 6 weeks. We have 1 week for the deposit, as I said before, and then the final settlement within 2 weeks. Yeah, that means that you need to calculate until 3 months to find something. Sometimes, of course, you don't find exactly what you want, and then takes a little bit longer, but at least 3 months is really an absolute minimum to buy a property. Okay, that's the process. How do you want to be successful, or how can we help you, assist you with being successful? As I said, budget is important. That's the main priority. Talk to your bank or your mortgage advisor and calculate your own budget, or ask us any question you like to ask. We will help you with that, because the budget is the first step to take. It is important when you make an offer that you also can finance it, of course, and that you can close the deal. Do your homework, as I said, the due diligence and the estimation of the value. That is very important. Don't make any mistakes in that, because afterwards it can cost a lot of money if you didn't look in detail. And also, as I said, make a good offer. That's the price. That are the conditions. It's also personal touch. We will add always a client profile, and also some supportive information. Maybe if you have already some information from your mortgage advisor, you can add that to your offer as well. Yeah. So that are 3 main points to make a successful bid and to be able to buy a property that you really like. And then, as I said before, you have the purchase price, but you also need to take into account that you will need to pay some costs. It's, of course, the mortgage advisor that comes in the total process. Of course, it can be your bank, but they will also charge an administration fee. If you want, you can also go to an independent mortgage advisor. They will show you the total offer in the market with not only one bank, but the offer of all different banks. And on today, I have to say that it can differ a little bit, as some banks now are lowering the interest rates and others don't. So sometimes then an independent mortgage advisor can be interesting. Of course, the realtor, as I said, if you take a realtor, a buying agent, you will need to pay him, of course. The technical experts, of course, you need to pay them as well. The appraiser, and then, of course, the notary and all costs related. If you now want to know what is exactly the price and the cost that you need to take into account, then I will say take around 3 to 4% for the purchase price of the purchase price as purchase costs. That is almost correct if you take into account all costs that you need to pay extra to that. And also don't forget the transfer tax. Of course, you can be exempted, but then you need to live up to the conditions. Otherwise, it will be 2 or 7% of the transfer tax that applies as well. And of course, as I said before, check on the tax deductibility, because all purchase costs that are related to financing of the properties, it is possible to deduct from your salary before you get taxed on that. So take that into account. You also have NHG, as they call it. I don't go totally in detail about every topic that I mentioned here on the slide. What is important, it's somewhere a kind of insurance when you're not able to pay your mortgage anymore, that you can apply on that insurance, the NHG insurance, Nationale Hypotheekgarantie. It is also a mean where you can have a reduction on interest rates. That also applies over there. So that can be very interesting to have a look at it. Of course, there are also some conditions you need to meet before you can subscribe to that. It has to do with the purchase price as well. You see some numbers here on the screen. Also look at the website. There it's explained a little bit more in detail. But the most important is if you can apply for it, then often it's a good thing to do it. So you can ask us, or for sure you can also ask your mortgage advisor or your bank if you can apply for NHG, yes or no. And if it's possible, then it's likely that I advise you to do it. The only thing, of course, that you need to take into account is that you need to pay also a cost for that. The cost is 6% of the mortgage that you will take to finance the property. So if you apply for it, you will have a lower interest rate, but upfront you need to be able to pay also 6% of your mortgage amount. So take that into account if you want to apply for this. And then I'm going to take a little sip, but then we are going to talk a little bit about financing. That is quite important, of course, because you want to buy a property, but you also need to be able to finance that property. And as we said before, in today's market, there is a lot of things shifting over there. I put here a graph where you can see what was the development of the interest rates the last couple of years. Since 1984, you can see there were ups and there were downs, but you saw that, yeah, of course, in 2020, 2021, for sure, the interest rates were at a historical low level. And for sure, if you took interest rates that were fixed, if you see here the 10-year interest rate fixed and a 5-year interest rate fixed. Really historical low level. You see as well that if we compare then 2021, 2022, then you see as well that interest rates went up quite fast, and that we really have a curve going up over there. But what we see now, and that is very important to know, is this graph. It's from Van Bruggen Adviesgroep, but you see here very clearly, so they mention a different kind of mortgages that you can have with NHG, without NHG, and then also the type of years that you fix your interest rate, yes or no. You see that there is a slight decrease in the interest rates in July for 10, 20, 30-year fixed mortgages. Yeah. What I mentioned over here as well, extra to that, is that even a decrease in interest rates is expected. And why is that? What we see on today is that banks always take a certain spread on the international markets. They also need to buy money to sell it again to you in a mortgage. And they always need to take a certain margin for the risk they have in everything that they do, and also for the profit they like to have. Of course, they need to take a margin on that. And normally that spread, yeah, it's a certain spread that they take. But on today, we see that that spread is 0.5% higher than what they really need to have to cover their risks. So that is very unusual. And two things are important for that is, one, it is holidays. It's a little bit strange, but it is like that. they had a lot of demands for mortgages at the beginning of the year, because people said mortgages are going up. So a lot of people applied for a mortgage, and they have a lot of work to do. So they are not looking for more work at the moment, for sure not with people going on holiday. And the second thing is that, yeah, of course, they have now a bigger spread. So that means also that they have a bigger profit at the moment. That is what is happening for the long term. The long-term fixed rates, because if it's a variable rate, then it's a little bit different. But that means, of course, that on today, in the end, you pay a little bit too much, to say. Some mortgage advisors already decreased the interest rates again. It are specific banks, and that's why I say sometimes it's good then to go to that independent mortgage advisor, because not all banks did it, but some of them did it. Of course, we need to see and follow up next couple of months how the market is going to handle that, because it is likely, I believe, that in September interest rates will go down again until something happens dramatically on the international finance markets, of course. But normally it is expected that interest rates will drop a little bit again going forward, and you see it already now in the graphs. So very important for you to know, very interesting as well, because as we see that some people are hesitating to buy on today, to step into the purchase market because of that mortgage rate, it can be the ideal moment to say, okay, I buy at a good price because I could negotiate a little bit on the price, and on top of that, now the couple of weeks the interest rates still went down, so I buy also at an interest rate which for sure on a historical level is not that high, and even it's even a little bit better than the last couple of weeks, and maybe after some years even you are able to refinance again if in the long run, of course, interest rates will go down again. But we need to see how that goes. So check. That's my advice to you when we speak about finance. We are a realtor, I said, not a financial expert. So know your budget. We can, of course, have a look in your specific case, and we can answer your questions or demands. But always go to a financial expert as well, because they know every detail. Of course, you need to share also all information that you have, and they can give you an advice really that is, totally taking into account every specific detail of your personal file. And when you purchase a property, when you do renovation, also important, you can also do those two things together when you buy a house. Always interesting to have a look at that and to see how to finance. It's a little bit different. The purchasing of a house, you will get that amount immediately. It needs to be paid with the notary. Renovation, it will be more like a deposit that is in the account, and they will pay it to you the moment that you have invoices from the suppliers. But always interesting to have a look at that. Before you search, have a look at it. Before you make an offer, double check, because now, as I said, also interest rates are going up and are going down. So make sure that you just pick the phone and double check with your mortgage advisor. And of course, always look at the validity period. How long will it take that the offer of the bank is valid? For sure, with a new build, very important. But even sometimes we see that with existing properties, if a transfer date for some reason is longer than 6 months, that can be possible. Sometimes you can buy then at good conditions, but it means as well that you need to ask your bank if they can extend the mortgage offer longer than 6 months, because normally it will only be valid for 6 months. So very important to take that into account. Voila, that's about financing. And of course, I spoke about costs. You also have our costs, and you also have our services, of course. I explained before, we have different packages that we apply. We have really the all-in package, where we also really support with the search for you. And there we go every day to look into detail what is the kind of properties that you like, what is in the market on today. You can read over there. We support with the search, we support with the viewings. We will do everything from A to Z, and also come to the notary totally in the end. Of course, we can offer that in the Randstad, as I said, 30-minute drive from Amsterdam. It can also be an hour. That's not the most important element on the slide. But that's what we can offer in the Randstad. In the rest of the Netherlands, that's a little bit more difficult. What you need to take into account over here as a cost, it depends a little bit, but it will be around 4,800 euro, taxes, VAT included. Yeah. What is the most popular with a lot of clients is they say, yeah, but we can have a look as well on the websites and then send you the properties that we like, or also follow maybe the social media of some selling agents, and then we send it to you, and then you can have a look at it, book our viewings, but also come to the viewings together with us, and then also give all the support from A to Z. This is the full service, as we call it. Yeah, focuses on the support, of course, over here. It's a cost you need to calculate around 3,999 euros, all fees included. Sometimes it depends a little bit. We try to see as well what are the specificities of your file. Maybe we can give a reduction, but then you need to take contact with us and we can speak through that together. Also 30-minute drive from Amsterdam, 1 hour you can take, that's totally fine. The Randstad, as I said before, that's where we offer this service. And then if you're further away from the Randstad, we can also support you, but then it's not always able for us to be at every viewing, as it can be very difficult to drive 1 hour 50 or something like that to the other side of the country and then come back. Then we lose a lot of time already in the day. But of course, we can help you with all the other elements in the process. And maybe you say, yeah, the viewings, that's something I can do. But before I make an offer, I really want to have that double check on the documents. And I also want to know what is the value. It's also good that you make the offer for me because I will have a better chance. Some people ask us to do this and they are really happy with that. Normally the fee for this basic service will be a maximum of 2,500 euros, everything included. Yeah, and that we can offer all over the Netherlands, of course. So that's a little bit what I wanted to say to you today. I don't know if there are some people that have some specific questions. If that is so, then you can pop them in the chat. I just wait for you to put it in there if there are some questions left. If there are none, then I suppose that everything was clear. Okay, I give you some more time. Okay, you can always indeed contact me by email, that's no problem. What I will share with you over here is one last thing, if it works. Yeah, voila. So what you can see over here is my contact details. Of course, I will share this webinar to you if I have your email address. If you didn't share your email address yet, then you can always send me or an email on this email address. It's vdb@vkmakelaars.nl, vdb from my name, Van den Broek, @vkmakelaars.nl. You can also call me or send me a WhatsApp, that's totally fine. You see the number, +31 629 82 5263. So you can always contact me over there. As I said, I'm always available in the night. It will take a little bit longer and I will answer to you in the morning. And if you take contact, then also use the code that you see over here. As I said, then we can offer you some specific conditions on our pricing of our services. Voila, I think that's it for tonight. If you want some specific information on your file, then please feel free to take contact. I shared everything with you, also the contact details. For now, I wish you a good evening. I would suggest to take a beer or a wine as we started, and because of the weather is still being good. So yeah, just enjoy. And then I hope to see you maybe soon to help you finding a place in the Netherlands and of course making a good deal. Thanks for now and speak to you later. Goodbye.